Då var vignetten på plats. Varmt välkomna till ett av festivalens absoluta höjdpunkter. Git Cheney heter jag och är festivalchef. Och vi har längtat efter det här ögonblicket väldigt länge. Att få lov att hylla Willem Dafoe med ett Stockholm Achievement Award. Visst är det härligt. Till vår hjälp ska vi ha, och jag kan väl säga att vi har alla en lång historia med Willem Dafoe. Vem minns inte Bobby Perry i Wild at Heart, vi har följt honom i Platoon, Antichrist och så vidare. Och till vår eminenta hjälp har vi ingen mindre än Hans Wiklund. Varsågod.
Ja, jag ska inte säga något speciellt innan, utan jag kommer bara sätta mig på den här stolen. Jag kan bara kort berätta att jag har träffat Willem Dafoe ett par gånger tidigare. Första gången var över 25 år sedan för Kristi sista frestelse. Och jag gjorde bort mig fullständigt. Får se om man minns det. Det blir spännande. Vi ska titta på ett litet collage.
First time?
Ja.
You think you're special?
Who's on a ship, partner?
What do you mean? Wait a second, what are we doing?
Say cheese.
Not the next show.
Accomplished!
It's a nice feeling.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the recipient of the 2012 Achievement Award, Willem Dafoe.
Thank you. Welcome. Good. Thank you. Yeah, I mentioned to the audience a couple of minutes ago that I actually met you some 25 years ago for Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, okay.
And that was in Venice.
Yeah.
And I was fresh out of film school, and I didn't really know how to ask questions, so I more or less told you about your own movie for 15 minutes, and
You won't be the first.
I know, but it was still really embarrassing, but I didn't make a lasting impression, obviously, so just forget about
But
it.
was I kind to you?
You were nice. Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah. You were all right.
Okay.
We're extremely pleased to have you here.
Good. Thank you. Yeah.
And I speak for everybody in here, I think. So let's go about to do this. You're a small town boy.
Yeah.
From a little place called Appleton in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And how much of that little small town boy is still in you?
Oh God.
Yes.
You know, no. Somewhere I'm very much a product of my upbringing. I recognize certain things that I can trace back to that time. But the other thing to say about the small town boy growing up in a very narrow-minded paper mill town in the Midwest, the northern Midwest of the States, is as soon as I could, I ran. Not because it was a bad place. It was just to do what I wanted to do. I knew I couldn't go. I couldn't do it there.
Mm. But did you fit in as a kid?
That's a leading question. You know, when I was young, I was, a nice, sweet kid. But like a lot of kids, I think I hit adolescence, and then I started to look around, and I thought there was something more. And I thought the way we were living was not the best way to live. So in the things that were proposed to me kind of as models for what to do in life weren't that attractive. So I suppose I developed a rebellious spirit. And, yeah.
Did you have a movie theater in your hometown?
I did. We had a couple. In fact, our movie theater was called the Viking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's true.
It was an homage to Sweden.
The Viking, and there were two paintings. That's funny. On the side of the walls, there were two big Viking ships. And I remember some of my first movie experiences were going to this. They would have kids' movies on Saturday. And you'd go, and there was a guy that we didn't know his name, but we called him Mr. Viking. He was an enormous guy with a shaved head, which was very strange in those days, because we're talking about late 50s, early 60s. And these kids would you'd watch these Disney films and things like that. And, the kids would go wild because they were unsupervised, and you'd, put candies in your mouth and throw them at the screen. Sure. And that kind of thing. And he'd come out and occasionally and he'd say, if you do not behave, I'm going to turn off the sound. And everybody would be calm. And then when the people would start to get crazy again, he'd turn off the sound. And then if you'd calm down, the sound would come up. And then so there was kind of this orchestrated play between the audience and Mr. Viking.
Great. When did you discover that you could act?
Could or wanted to? Wanted to give it a try. When I was pretty small, I know I liked plays and things like that, and that's basically. Pardon? Someone talking? Just the camera guy.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Just like on a set. Who's talking? Fair enough. Where were we?
I cannot remember. The camera guy distracted me. I'm sorry.
The acting thing.
Yes.
No, when I started out, it was something that to grow up. My wife teases me when I tell stories like this because she says, "Oh, you were from the favelas of Wisconsin, right?" But I grew up with very little cultural education. So when I'm talking about theater, I'm talking about doing little plays in school when I'm young, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I remember when I was very young, I used to write plays and loved to stage them. And that's, I suppose, where I started. They were always historic plays, and my problem was I could never develop them dialogue-wise because I would always only write action scenes. So
any Viking stories?
They became more like dance pieces because I'd come to stage it, and there would be very little dialogue, you know. They'd have grand names like the Alaskan Gold Rush. And there would be two guys, I'd, you know, type it out. Two guys around the campfire. Hey, Jeb, you worried about the claim jumpers? And the other guy would say, yup. And then the guys would come in and there would be an extended fight sequence. So that would be Act One.
Yeah, sure. But
That's how I started.
Charlie Chaplin did a whole movie like that.
It's true. It's true.
Then you came to New York and started acting on theaters.
Yeah, I even before that, I started working with a small company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is actually it's a town of about 1 million people, industrial town. And it was a time where people, you know, we were making our own work. We rented a factory space, and that was our little home. So that was kind of my introduction to being, you know, kind of homemade, hands-on, poverty-stricken small theater company. That's how really I started saying, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is what I want to do for my life.
Sure. And how did you come into the movies?
I came into the movies because after I toured with this group in Milwaukee, and I would meet various people we toured as well in Europe, actually. And I met a director, and he said, if you come to New York, come and see me. And everything that I was reading about and excited about as far as theater was happening in New York. So I thought, well, that's where I have to go. So I went there, and I originally thought I was going to be, you know, a traditional theater actor, even though I didn't have any training. I had been working for a little bit. But I was only attracted to stuff downtown, you know, more performance stuff like the Performance Group, like Richard Foreman, Robert Wilson, people like that. So I started to work with one of those companies, and some people saw me in that work, and the first movie I did, really substantial thing that I did, was Catherine Bigelow's first film. It was called The Loveless, and it was probably made in about 79.
Maybe this is a rumor, but you were supposed to be, you did work with Michael Cimino on Harry's
No, it's no rumor. I did until I got fired, actually.
What happened?
Oh, it's a long story.
Make it short.
It started out when I was a boy in Wisconsin. No, what happened was, it was strange because I was working in theater and I got this call to read for this movie, and I got a part, but it wasn't a scripted part. He had a kind of interesting idea that he would have a group, kind of a chorus of people, and he was going to develop their roles in the course of shooting, which seemed like a reasonable thing. He had just won the Academy Award, and a lot of the people in the movie had just won an Academy Award for The Deer Hunter. So he was, in Hollywood terms, very hot as a pistol, okay? We started making this movie. It was supposed to take 3 months. It ended up taking 8 months. It's a film that, you know, bankrupted a studio, really. But my little story is, after about 3 months, there was a lot of pressure on him, and he was very nervous because he was a perfectionist, and I admired him. He was working in a new way, and he was working in a very detailed way. But it was driving people crazy because the budget was skyrocketing. He was very nervous, and one day we were sitting in a lighting setup, and we were all standing there, and a woman next to me, I mean, we're talking about 8 hours in costume, just standing there, you know, to arrange the lights. And a woman told me a dirty joke, and I laughed, and I stuck up my tongue, you know, to kind of acknowledge, you know, like, ah! And he turned around at that moment and saw me, and I think in his stressed state, he just said, "Willem, step out." And that was it.
We're going to do the same thing with our camera guy over here. Eventually, you met with Oliver Stone, and then you got Platoon.
Right.
Can you tell us some about how you worked on your character there?
Platoon was really interesting because, first of all, it was a movie. It was a passion project. It was a movie that took him like 10 years to get financed. And originally, he auditioned everyone in the world for this movie. And even when I met with him, I thought, God, this guy's unlike anyone I've ever met in the film business, because it was early in his career. And he finally said, listen, I want you to do something in this movie. I don't know which role, but I want you to be in this movie. And I said, good, because I was interested in the whole thing. And that's something that still remains. I don't just look at a role, I look at the whole thing normally. That's why I'm happy to take small roles sometimes, to work with interesting directors or to be in interesting situations. But in this case, okay, he hired me. Finally, he told me what role I was going to play. And this was, actors talk a lot about preparation, but this was really special because he made a training period in the Philippines before we started shooting. It was really intense. They basically dumped us out in the middle of nowhere in the jungle with a bunch of Green Berets and people that had fought, Vietnam veterans.
So it was boot camp more than rehearsals?
Yeah, it was. And these guys had such a stake in having what we were doing be authentic in terms of really knowing how to move through the jungle, really knowing how to deal with our weapons, really knowing what we were doing, that it was quite intense. And originally, everybody thought, it would be talks about who our character was and that kind of thing, but that was all out the window. And it was really about learning how to do things. And it was beautiful for that, because by the time we went to do the movie, like 3 weeks later, you had a history. You developed a relationship to these things, to your clothes, to your weapons, to, it wasn't just about playing the story, it was about doing things. And I've always found that, that's the way I approach performing. It's a very practical action, task-oriented approach to things. And also, when you learn something, I wasn't a soldier, I learned a lot of things. When you learn things, it opens up your brain in a different way that allows you to get ready for pretending, It gets you ready to take on another point of view, it makes your imagination and your sense of who you are malleable. You can really invite new experience that way a lot easier.
Then, the result was fantastic, obviously, and you got the Oscar nomination.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
No, great. No, it's good news,
I would say.
Okay, cool. I don't know what it means, but it's good. The beautiful thing about that movie was it was this little independent movie that had no big stars in it. Oliver Stone was fairly new. The kind of Vietnam movies that were being made then were things like Rambo. So nothing about this film really, if you were a studio executive, would say, this movie's, there's a public for that. So it's a movie that kind of found its way, and that was very magical. And of course, so that was particularly special to get recognition for a movie that kind of came out of nowhere. And it was a personal film, and for Vietnam veterans at that time, it really seemed to make a huge difference. A lot of people started coming out of the closet and kind of talking about their experiences in the war that they were sort of ashamed to talk about before. So for me, of course, I'm involved in the film, so I'm maybe too close to it, but it was quite beautiful to see the effect that film had on communities of veterans and their families. Because before that, of course, they were generally reviled outside of their communities because Vietnam was such a, so people were so ashamed that that had a healing effect.
Was that important for you, that the movie made a difference?
Oh God, yes, but I don't anticipate that, and that's not, it's nice to be useful. And it's nice to feel like you contribute. But in order to do that, I think you have to serve yourself. You have to serve yourself in the respect that you have to do things that you're interested in and find the way where you're engaged in the fullest way possible. And then hopefully there will be like-minded people out there that will respond to what you're doing. But I really have a problem with kind of anticipating the effect of things. I think that really limits you. Because then you rule out all kinds of impulses because you're judging things too much all the time.
So, who won the Oscar?
Not me. Another guy. That year, actually, it's kind of sad. Well, not sad, but it was disappointing because who won the Oscar was like, it was Michael Caine, and he won it for Hannah and Her Sisters, and he didn't even show up at the ceremony because he was off in the Caribbean making Jaws 4. Now, I'm not saying anything. It just represents two people in very different places in their career.
So,
if I'm nominated, I promise I'll show up.
yeah, okay.
Jaws 6 or not.
I have a few quotes here that you're supposed to have made. I want people to like me. I just don't particularly want them to understand me.
Huh. You know what? I don't remember saying that.
It's a good say.
But that sounds, I don't know how to feel about that. That's kind of interesting. I want people to like me, but I don't want people to understand me.
Right.
That doesn't sound right. Okay. I think I do want people to like me. I'm a social guy. Why not?
So I have to quote.
But the other part about, I don't think people do understand you, and I try to give up on that idea that people are going to understand me, except for people very close to me who love me very much.
We love you too.
But no, seriously, I'm not sure I said that.
Okay, so let's move on. Do you have...
It's that damn internet.
Right.
That's
what
bad
it is.
information gets in there, and you can't get it out.
Yeah. It's out now.
It's the Wild West.
Do you have a method when you approach a character?
I don't. I think there's tendencies and there's kind of things that I recognize I go towards, but I also really, I really think for each project you have a different kind of performing is required for each project, and your responsibility in each project is different. So you really have to tailor make.
Whoa,
Hey,
Magnus.
it's okay. It's okay.
Magnus,
Hey,
ta en telefon, dra härifrån.
tell her to pick up a.
Say something first. You were great. I like your performance as the Green Goblin in Spiderman.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Good. Yeah.
His mom called.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, where were we? I understand you sort of prefer to do your own stunts and things like that. You're a very physical actor.
Yeah, I mean, I like doing them. And also, it's like I don't want someone else to do my job. Because you do something, it's bad enough that films are so collaborative, and you make something and someone turns it into something else. Least you can do is give them material, rough material to work with that has a kind of integrity and a kind of wholeness to it. And if you, okay, welcome back.
He's back.
So stunts are part of that, and besides, I like doing physical things. That's really the heart of performing, and I got great pleasure out of that. Right. Also, stuntmen are very good at certain skills like driving cars and things like that. They can do better than I can. But I think physically, I prefer to do my own performance because because it's my performance. I don't see the reason. The only reason why someone should do a stunt is if they have a skill that I can't do and it doesn't make any difference, like you can't see me, like if it's a very fast car shot or some sort of maneuver with a car that's difficult.
Right. And also you like to be knocked around, or?
I don't know about that. That's just part of it, so I accept it. I don't like it, but I accept it. There's a big difference.
I hear you. But you don't mind body doubles?
I don't normally use body doubles.
I was thinking about the explicit sex scenes with Lars von Trier.
That wasn't even a choice, and I'm glad it wasn't a choice because, I was happy he used a body double. Because the truth is, if he didn't use a body double, it becomes a topic of conversation. And, then people it distracts them from the movie, I think. But at the same time, we're talking about in Antichrist, there was a quite explicit sex scene, and there's a close-up of intercourse. And it's not me. That's an exception. Because I don't want people blogging, and I don't want people not, falling out of the performance because they're saying, wow, so that's what he looks like. So I let Horst do it for me. And, you're telling a story. I get why Lars wanted something explicit there because it was kind of a visceral thing to try to, to root a part of the story. So I get it, and there was really no discussion about it.
Right. Taking a look at your body of work, you've been working with a lot of really extremely good directors, such Oliver Stone, Scorsese, David Lynch. Do you feel these guys are bringing out the best in you, or? You just like to be in the room with the people that inspire you and people that have vision. That's the main thing. I think I choose when there are proposals or when I seek out work, it's very about director-driven movies. Also, just my relationship to a director. Trust is very important, and I really feel best when I can surrender to them. And to make that worthwhile, you've got to be convinced they're worth it. And also, I've always felt like I do best when I attach myself to someone who has a story or something they're dying to tell. It may not be my story. And part of the process of doing the movie is me going towards the story they're talking about. I become the agent of their story, their fantasy, the thing that they want to express. And that's interesting. I mean, it's because if I try to serve my own agenda, I'm less flexible. So if you find someone that says, listen, this is the story, he can't do it, he or she can't do it because they're watching, they need someone in there to inhabit it, and I like being that person. That's I feel the power and the excitement. Maybe it's the kind of thing of empathy. It's like when you fall in love. You get new energy, you get new possibility, and I think that's what in life you're looking for it. But in all creative things, that's what you're looking for. New possibility. To challenge yourself in a way that you couldn't have anticipated. And if you control things too much, that's what's nice about being an actor and sad about being an actor. If you control things too much, it limits you because you're judging, you're measuring, you only do what you know. But if you really give yourself over to someone else and just try to serve them and find out what they're trying to do, you're much freer. I don't know whether I expressed that well, but you get a little taste maybe of it. I think so. It makes sense. Speaking about the Last Temptation of Christ, that was Martin Scorsese's story, obviously. And but it stirred big controversy. Were you surprised?
I was, because, yeah, because and somewhere in the heart of it, it was about spirituality. It was an examination of certain things about the Christ story. It may not have been the usual examination, but I thought, the approach was very, there was something very Catholic about that movie, even though some of the details were different in the story. So I was surprised. I didn't anticipate it. Of course, I knew this movie was based on a Kazantzakis movie, and he was had a lot of problems. I think he was excommunicated. There were many problems. But that was many years earlier, and I just didn't anticipate it.
And we need to talk a little about your work with David Lynch, Bobby Peru.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah, good. That was a case of I didn't do anything. I showed up. David made the world. I put on that costume. I put on these fake teeth, and I was there. Whatever it was, there were enough triggers in the text, in the costumes, in those teeth. When I say triggers, they're things that take you away from yourself and get you ready to pretend. So I didn't think too much about that guy. I just was like a little kid. It's like, those are the clothes, those are the teeth, well, I'm him, and what the beauty of that character is, it's so well written. It comes from a Barry Gifford novel. It's so well written, and David was very clear about what he should look like, and so.
And you also seem to be enjoying working with Abel Ferreira.
I do. Yeah, he's a self-starter. He's an auteur. He doesn't get any help. He does it all by himself, and the way he works is, he works without a net. He's exciting to work with, and I like some of the themes he explores. He really kind of like Scorsese, he deals with kind of rough realities, but they always have a real shadow side of, spiritual themes. And I like that.
Yeah, and he seemed to be sort of outside the Hollywood system, sort of.
He's definitely outside. And he keeps on making movies, and I think sometimes he gets marginalized. But if you sit down, I had the occasion once to see a retrospective of his work, your jaw drops and you say, people, this is like a guy that doesn't get his due. He's admired, but not as much as he should be, and he's been so important to other filmmakers. He's really freed them and made them able to take steps that they probably couldn't do if he wasn't out there. I like him.
And also you made movies in the other side of the spectrum, of course, like Speed 2.
Speed 2,
Spiderman, that guy's
Spiderman. Spiderman, Spiderman was great fun for me because it was such a beautiful mixture of drama and comedy. And also you had that kind of broad physical stuff, but you also had this kind of sweet, relationship with the father and the son, and it was a Hollywood movie, but I thought it was quite personal and well expressed. I'm talking about the first one in particular.
Because you did 2 more.
Yeah, but in quite a marginal way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But do you go about your work the same way you do when you work with Spider-Man compared to Abel Ferreira or Lars von Trier movie?
As I kind of said before, you do. There are proposals and there's problem solving, and you've got to be there and develop what you're dealing with. So it tells you what to do. I think it's interesting that I can't express this enough. Each time it's different, and that's the beauty of it. And when I get there, whether it's with Abel Ferreira, it's different people, it's different intent, it's different, you've got different facilities to work with, you've got different budgets, you've got different time. You factor that in, but it's all pretending and it's all making things. So of course it's different, but you don't say, I gotta perform that other way because I'm making a Hollywood movie, or I'm gonna really, perform dirty because I'm making a little low-budget movie. You do what the scene tells you to. You do what your story tells you, what the character tells you, whatever poetry you can find. You have it work on you.
But you also have a sort of a game plan that you want to mix.
I do, but I do have a game plan to mix because I think that's keeps you from, repeating yourself in a certain kind of corruption and a certain kind of lockstep. But it also happens kind of naturally because I feel like career-wise, I've never been really hot, I've never been really not. I kind of bounce around and opportunities rise and fall and they go away and then a lot come and it kind of happens by itself too. But I'm very conscientious about checking things out. I will say that. That's, when you're not shooting a movie, people say, hey, you're on vacation. Man, I'm like a guy that goes to an office, I mean, for many years, I used to go every day to a theater because almost for 26 years, I had my own theater, and I was there every day when I wasn't on a movie set. Now, I still do theater, but it's not daily. But every day, I work in reading scripts and in dealing with stuff. So I'm very conscientious about checking things out, and I don't have an idea about, I don't do that kind of movie, or I don't work with that kind of people. I try to look at it specifically and say, does this turn me on, Is this an opportunity to find something out, or,
Did you read the script for Speed 2?
I did. And it wasn't the script. It was the director, and it was the director showing me models of the ship and telling what he was going to do, and the kind of mix of comedy and adventure stuff. I mean, I think Speed 2 functions for some people, and I think another time, a slightly different time, a slightly different this, a slightly different that. That basically same movie could have been a much bigger success, even, critically. I can't say that's a bad movie. I really can't. I think it just kind of came at the wrong time and had the wrong elements. The real problem was, it's called Speed 2. A big luxury, what do they call them? Cruise ship. Cruise ships are slow. And whether you're running them into islands and you can have all the special effects in the world.
Takes forever.
That was the problem that no one anticipated.
Well,
I think that was the heart of the problem. And also I also think Sandra Bullock, who's a great comedian, had an interest in performing a different kind of character, and she was kind of interested in sexing it up, and they gave her a love interest, and that love interest was kind of a serious, heavy leading man that didn't have a light touch, and all these things I think didn't make the movie stick, but that's kind of academic.
Absolutely. We're going to let in the audience, if you don't mind, to ask some questions. I'm just going to, the final question is, probably you can't say anything about the Lars von Trier movie you're working on currently?
No. I mean...
Lars said it's supposed to be like a porn movie.
Talk to Lars.
Okej, har vi några frågor så får ni gärna ställa dem. Oj, jag räcker upp händer, vi tar dig här framme.
I have a question about To Live and Die in LA.
Okay.
Which should have been your breakthrough, even though people consider Platoon the breakthrough, because I think you're great in it.
Thanks.
You were talking about working with directors and freedom versus directing. What was it like to work with William Friedkin that early? I know it wasn't, you've done films.
Yeah.
They were great before that, but I know it's considered early on in your career.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
How much freedom were you given in that
Okay. One thing, to live and die in L.A., personally for me, I think is more of a breakthrough in a funny way, because that was it was a huge failure in the States as a box office thing, but film people loved it. So I felt like people really responded to it. It's a film called To Live and Die in L.A., like 1983 or 4. Billy Friedkin, what was he like to work with? He was wild. I mean, I really liked him a lot. And every day, it was a good script. He was, he's an adventurer. He was making it up as he went along. He was adjusting things all the time. And that was very exciting, because it was a production that was an independent production. That it was very odd in those days to have an independent production with a kind of A-list studio director. But he had kind of had it with the studio system and wanted to do something a different way. And I think the way he worked had a certain kind of flexibility, because he would come to a location and say, you know what, I saw it before, it looked good, but today, no, we're going to do something else. What else can we do? And, it was very fluid. And that was exciting to see. And then it was just a beautiful character that I had, who was kind of like a criminal counterfeiter artist.
You ever drawn that?
Excuse me.
No.
Sorry, we're running out of time. Can we have one more
Sure.
question? You.
You play a lot of bad guys and scary guys,
Yeah?
and you do it well.
Thank you.
If you could play a good guy and a hero in a remake of any movie,
Huh.
who would it be?
Wow, I'm not clever that way. I don't know, I don't aspire to play. People always say, what role would you like to play? It's like, if I can see it, it's done. It's really a little bit like that. Because I'm not an interpreter. I'm a guy that likes to do things, and I don't know until I get there. Sorry. What would you like to see me do? A good guy. Do you have an idea?
I think you would be good in the Avengers.
The Avengers, okay. I think they've done that already.
They did that.
Hey, but that doesn't stop them from doing it again and again and again.
Okay, sorry.
I have a question.
No.
We talked to you
Inte
already.
du.
Maybe we try someone else.
Finns inte. Tyvärr inga fler frågor. Det är lite stressigt. Vi ska dela ut pris och lite sånt där. Ursäkta oss. So move on to the next thing. What is the next thing?
We can take a couple of questions. We'll go
Maybe we can
quick.
take one more. You're in the back row.
I saw your wife's film yesterday.
Yeah, did you like it?
I liked it, yeah.
Good.
I'd like to see the play as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful performance.
I think you touched on the subject. She asked you a question about your performance, and you said that working with Bob Wilson, it sort of developed much to you approached this like a dance. You said. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but maybe you could develop a little bit on that.
I don't know. But, I'm sorry. I don't know exactly what to say. Also, we're referencing something that people don't know. There's a film here that you should see. It happens to be directed by a woman I know very well. Giada Colagrande made a documentary. It's called Robert Wilson's Life and Death of Marina Abramovic. And it's a documentary about the process of 4 people, well, more than 4, but a group of people coming together making this theater piece. And it's not just a making of documentary. It's really a profile. It's really a portrait of a collaboration. So that's what we're talking about. And he said that I approached my role in this theater piece like a dance. And I guess basically it's Bob Wilson. Do you people know who he is? Robert Wilson? Some people do, okay. He's a great avant-garde theater director, opera director. And through the years, he's been working, he's 70 years old, he's probably been working for, 45 years. He's created a language that's very artificial, very specific. Always there's tension. There's not a relaxed. He despises natural movement. So there's no just sitting there. They're sitting there with tension. And in doing the play, I accept that language and I speak in that language, and I can only deal with it in a physical way and like a dancer. And that was a beautiful way to approach it. I tried to cable that together.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Willem Dafoe!
What happens now?
To present Willem Dafoe with the Achievement Award, please welcome Peter Fonda.
Oh!
To present Willem Dafoe with the Achievement Award, please welcome Peter Fonda.
Good coat.
Thank you for taking all the heat off me, dude. And I agree. You want to be liked, but I know I'll never be understood.
Yeah, good.
It works very well. But I need a cheat sheet here. Willem and I did a film together, and not too long ago. But this is the first time I've met him. Seriously, we're not on the same set. We're just in the same film. We get to say we work together because we're in the same film. Sounds good. So, to the point, the Stockholm Achievement Award goes to one of the world's most multifaceted actors who have the power to hypnotize your audience with just one glance. Willem Dafoe has gone from Christ to Antichrist, and he plays characters who tread on the breaking point. I like that part. I didn't write this, but I like it. And whose controlled exterior hides an inner chaos. Now I'm envious. I like that anarchy that goes on there. And you've got it ladled here. It's a chaos that we can't quite get enough of. And one of the good things is he's a lot younger than I am, so I'll get a lot of his chaos. So Willem, come over here and let me give you this incredible.
I know.
It's very cool.
It's very cool. I think this is one of the most beautiful. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. It's cool to receive this from Peter. Really nothing to say except for thanks for the encouragement. Everybody's been real sweet here. It's been fun to be here. It's a good festival. And go see movies. Okay? All right. Thanks. Is that it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Better than Venice. What? Better than Venice.
Yeah, I don't know whether we see you. I hope so. Yeah.